Good morning. I am Maggie. This is Bramble Blossom, and welcome back to my happy place. I wanted to spend a little bit of time today talking to you all about choosing a location for your garden. We have ours in our backyard because that's where we have space, but there are some things to consider with the space that you have. For example, the way that you orient the garden and where you're planting things within the garden. So as the sun is rising from the east over here on my right, we have in the summer months when the trees are in bloom, when the trees have leaves, we have a little bit of a limitation from both sides. There are two large trees on either side of us in our neighbors' yards that we don't have a lot of control over. And then the way that our house is, because we have our space in our backyard, obviously south facing is considered the best, but our house blocks that direction. So we do get a good amount of sun coming up over the sky, even with those limitations. But there are certain things that I take into consideration when actually putting plants in the ground, and I wanted to talk to you all about that, just as a reference. If something requires full sun, if you're looking at a tag on a started plant, or if you're looking at a seed packet and it says full sun, you need to plan on having 6 to 8 hours of direct sunlight during that time. So in our backyard currently, because we aren't in the brightest, warmest part of the season, there are parts of a small part of my garden that is still a little bit shaded, and that is up here in the front portion where I will be putting in some asparagus, and also you can see that I have some brambles over there that are a little bit shaded, and part of my strawberries are a little bit shaded still. But as the sun travels across the sky, that won't be as much of an issue. But I do tend to put my shorter plants here in the front of the garden so that the shadows cast by the taller plants aren't affecting them as much. So I had root vegetables here in the front. I did some bush beans up here in the front last year. Apparently I missed some onions. You can see some sticking up there in the ground. And then my kale plant that is actually on its third year, I think. I'm just kind of leaving that there as an experiment to see how long it will stay alive, but it has survived 2 winters thus far. And then, as I mentioned the other day, I have my trellises for my tomatoes, and those are about, I want to say they're probably close to 6 feet tall. So I have those. And then obviously the cattle panels that I mentioned previously that are arched, that I grow my vining things up. So as we move back, things are taller and taller. And last year I did have pepper plants back here in this back section, and they did just fine. But this year I will probably be putting some okra in there just because they are taller and I don't have to worry so much about something shorter being shaded out by the larger, taller plants. And okra loves its heat and its sun, so that will be a good place for it. So again, just kind of considering your layout in terms of where the sun hits, when the sun hits. It'd be a good idea to, before deciding on a location for your garden, to look at the spaces you do have available, see where sunlight is most prevalent and where shadows are falling currently in our backyard. Obviously, I showed you the shadows that are falling on the front part of the garden there. We do also have a little bit of shadow in our mini orchard area from the neighbor's fence, but those trees will still be getting plenty of sunlight as the sun travels across the sky. So as long as everything's getting the amount of hours of sunlight that it requires, even if there is some shadowing, some shade during portions of the day, that's fine. And additionally, I mentioned I tend to grow some things that don't love the hot sun under the arched panels on purpose, so that they will be partially shaded. Things that are quick to go to seed or bolt. Lettuces, spinach, cabbages, those things that actually enjoy a little bit of cooler temperatures, cooler weather, and not the hot bright sun of the summer months. So those are some additional things to keep in mind or consider as you are planning the layout of your very first garden. I thank you for joining me here in my happy place at Brimble Blossom. Have a great day.